Okay, a lot of people in many countries, they get close to retirement and they think, oh my God, I mean, I've saved something for retirement, I've invested something, but I don't have a lot of money. And it's interesting, online, I was reading some communities, especially in very expensive places like Switzerland, United States, or some parts of the United States. Many people are like, oh my God, I've only got 700, 800 grand, or maybe even a million. It sounds like a lot of money in some parts of the world, but in California, you obviously can't retire on $1 million. A lot of people are saying, where in the world can you retire and live like a king, or at least very comfortably, on $1 million? Now, as I've said before, the 4% rule is pretty key. It has its critics, but it's pretty accurate in terms of if you're retiring now, if you manage your assets well, $40,000 from a million is relatively okay, right? In terms of not running out of money. Likewise, 800,000, 32K, 1.2 million, 50K. Now, where in the world as an expat can you realistically go, get a visa and live like a king on those kind of money? I would say it's 3 or 4 areas of the world. Now, one area of the world I would say is Eastern Europe. If you're a EU citizen, you can get a visa, no problem, in Eastern Europe, both in the EU states and even non-EU states, even places like Serbia, Georgia. It's not incredibly difficult to get residency in those kind of places, but the more developed places in Europe, like Budapest, Prague, and so on, you can still live very comfortably for not very much money. Apart from that, some places in Southeast Asia, so places like Cambodia, also Thailand, or at least some parts of Thailand, some parts of Malaysia, they all have retirement visa programs, and they can all be done cheaply, provided that you're not going over the top. So, for example, there's always things that are expensive, like alcohol in Malaysia, or one or two things in Thailand. But as long as you can manage a few things, you can do it okay. Then there's also a case of some parts of South America, places like some parts of Colombia and other parts of the world in that region, or shall I say, other countries in that region. Those are also areas that you could look at. So I would say some parts of South America, some parts of Southeast Asia, and some parts of Eastern Europe are really the easiest places for you to retire comfortably. And you can get a visa, a retirement visa, or just a normal visa if you're a EU citizen. And in addition to that, they're usually relatively safe, apart from some parts of South America. What I would say though is this: in terms of a Western lifestyle, increasingly Eastern Europe is becoming cheaper than Southeast Asia. And that was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, Southeast Asia was just cheap in general. So, for example, Cambodia. Cambodia, even Phnom Penh, was incredibly cheap 10 years ago. Things have changed though. It's developed more, at least for expat services, it's expensive. Expat bars, restaurants, anything that's considered foreign, cheese, whatever. If you want a Western lifestyle, arguably actually Eastern Europe now is cheaper than Southeast Asia and some parts of South America as well. But obviously it depends country by country. It also depends on the kind of services you want. And a big thing is that in Eastern Europe, healthcare and health insurance is much cheaper, I would say, than expat coverage outside of the European Union. Okay, everyone, I hope that was useful.